In the rugged and unforgiving landscape of 10th century Iceland, where the wind whispered ancient secrets through jagged cliffs and icy fjords, a child was born destined to shape the history of the Viking Age. His name was Egil Skallagrimsson, a man of contradictions. Fierce warrior, thoughtful poet, and relentless seeker of justice and vengeance. From the moment of his birth, Egil's fate was marked by hardship and ferocity. His father, Skallagrim, was a powerful chieftain who had fled Norway after defying King Harald Fairhair's ruthless campaign to unite the Norse lands under one crown. Iceland was wild, untamed, and full of promise for those bold enough to seize it. It was here, among volcanic plains and dense forests, that Egil would grow, hardened by nature and fate alike. Even as a boy, Egil was unlike other children. He was wild and unruly, his spirit untamed like the land itself. At just 12 years old, during a feast at his family's hall, a quarrel erupted. A man insulted Egil's family, accusing them of cheating at games. The insult ignited a storm inside the boy. Without hesitation, Egil seized an axe, the weight of it unfamiliar but deadly, and struck the man down before the hall could react. The silence that followed was thick and heavy, a moment when the fiery boy's destiny was sealed. Egil was no ordinary child, he was a force of nature, destined to carve his name into the saga of the Vikings. As Egil grew into a man, his reputation spread like wildfire. His strength in battle was legendary. He fought with the ferocity of a berserker, striking fear into the hearts of his enemies. But Egil was more than a warrior. He was a skald, a poet whose verses could cut deeper than any sword. His words carried the weight of emotion and the sharpness of truth. In a culture that valued honor above all, Egil's poetry was a weapon and a shield. One of the most important figures in Egil's life was his brother Thorolf. The two were inseparable, bound by blood and loyalty. Together they fought in battles and raids across the cold seas, their bond unbreakable. But fate, as it often does in Viking tales, was cruel. King Eirik Bloodaxe, a man as ruthless as his name suggests, viewed Thorolf and Egil as threats to his rule. Political intrigue and jealousy led to Thorolf's death, a wound that tore through Egil's heart and ignited a burning desire for vengeance. Grief-stricken but resolute, Egil vowed to honor his brother's memory. His enemies would pay for their treachery. Among those who had wronged him was Barda, a court official and enemy to Egil. Under the cover of night, Egil crept into Barda's home. The shadows hid his approach as silently as the ocean's depths. With a swift and merciless strike, Egil ended Barda's life, an act that made the king's fury rain down upon him. Declared an outlaw, Egil became a hunted man. But where others saw exile and death, Egil saw opportunity. He turned to the sea, launching raids along the Norwegian coast, exacting his own brand of justice. His name became whispered in fear among his foes and sung in admiration by his allies. Eventually, Egil was captured and brought before King Eirik, death looming over him like a dark cloud. Yet Egil had one last weapon, his voice. Through the long hours of the night, he composed a poem known as Höfuðlausan, the head ransom. It was a masterpiece of praise and cunning, meant to sway the cold heart of the king. At dawn, Egil delivered the poem with fiery passion. The king, moved by the power and honor in the words, spared Egil's life. In that moment, poetry triumphed over the sword, but Egil's trials were not over. The death of his two sons, young and full of promise, crushed his spirit. In his grief, Egil penned some of the most sorrowful verses ever recorded in Norse poetry, his words echoing the pain of a father and warrior alike. One of his lamentations reads, "The wind was a wild horse, the sky was heavy with clouds, my heart is broken in battle's storm, for my sons lie silent in the earth." Egil Skallagrimsson lived into old age, a rarity among Vikings, whose lives were often cut short by battle and hardship. He died on his farm in Iceland, a man who had faced death countless times but lived fiercely until the end. His saga, written with honesty and raw emotion, survives as one of the greatest Viking tales ever told. Egil was more than a warrior or poet, he was a living legend, a man who shaped history with both blood and verse.